Live.
Great. Everyone, thanks for joining this session of the Hyperledger Meetup, sponsored by the Denver Hyperledger Group. And today we have the pleasure of having Eddie Satterly join us, and he's the CTO of OneOf, and he's going to be talking about building the next-gen Web3 loyalty with Hyperledger Fabric, Indy Aries. And we're going to go through a live demo of the OnePlatform Loyalty. And we're going to look at how Major Media Rewards platform is a part of this, and we'll demonstrate the capabilities and how Hyperledger projects made all of this possible. So at this point, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Eddie. And throughout this presentation, don't hesitate to either raise your hand or put a question in the chat, and we'll get to it right away. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll also have a Q&A session. So Eddie, over to you, and take it away.
Perfect, thanks. So I've been wanting to jump to this for a while, so now I get to do it for real. Yeah, so it's great to be here. Thanks, guys. We have spent about the last 6 or 7 months building a new platform that we call OnePlatform, but essentially built primarily around Hyperledger components. So I mentioned all the Indy Aries and Fabric, but kind of at the core of all that's also Firefly, and we're doing some work there too, but it kind of pulls everything together. But really, like, why Web3 loyalty, right? There's all kinds of gimmicky things. There's all kinds of really niche things that are going on. And then some brands who've done a really good job with this. But really why it matters is it gives a brand a new way to engage with the user, right? In that I can offer you something, let you work towards something, let you kind of gamify the experience, and let you figure out how you want to do something. So the company we acquired last year, which actually I came from, was Tap Networks, which was a loyalty platform that was already down a Web3 path to some point. But this is kind of jumped way ahead and moved everything to a full Hyperledger backend. So, but it's all about gamifying user experience and putting the user in control of their data, meaning the user controls everything, how they interact. They get offers to do things. They can choose to engage or not. If they want to take a physical good, for instance, then they have to provide a mailing address that they can send it to. So that's their choice. They can also choose how they link their accounts between brands and what they share from one to another. But kind of the most important thing to the adoption is hiding all the complexity from the users. So every user conversation I've had, people either understand Web3 really well and they want to be expert users, or they don't want to deal with it at all, right? They just want the ease of it and the ability to interact without having to deal with any of the complexities of how that works. So we kind of made that an easy button version of things. And then moving towards decentralized ID is kind of the key to, I think, the future of where we want to do with being able to interact with the web and Web3 specifically. And in order to get there, you kind of have to make it transparent and easy for most of the people, because people, you know, that aren't keeping up with the emerging technology, that maybe aren't, you know, playing on devices all the time, or software developers, or, you know, people who are just, you know, experts in the space. Short of that, it's really hard to find someone who even understands what it is. And I've spent hours just explaining what it is to people. And we're going to do another session on the decentralized ID part of our platform later in the fall, kind of in more detail, and do a hands-on bit on that. But part of it is you got to make that easy so people can move that direction. This is just a quick sample of a page from the Redeem perspective about how you gamify things, right? You have to collect a series of things in order to be able to move to the next level. The why Hyperledger part, right? So again, new ways to engage, new uptake, putting users in control. Same thing we said before, but really what it's about is permissioning is kind of the key to success for this, and that Firefly is bringing the whole thing together, right? So we essentially have a series of React apps, a commerce app, a loyalty app, a wallet app, and we pull everything together in Firefly. So if you're familiar with Firefly, the ETH Connect and the Fab Connect are part of the current Firefly offering. We're currently building because we have with our media, Warner Media, but we have a contract with Tesla's Foundation, and we do all of our media digital assets on Tezos. So we are in the midst of finishing up the Tezos Connect capability for Firefly. We've been working with the community, and we'll be open sourcing that sometime in August once we gone through the last of things. But we're extending that capability so that you'll not only have the ETH and Fab Connect side, but you'll also have a Tezos Connect capability in there too. We pull everything together from an identity perspective with Indy. Aries isn't really on here because it's really the client side of it, but that lets us kind of pull this whole component version together so that we know exactly what we need from where. We're using the metrics plugin to collect metrics, and then we're using Postgres both to store index data so that we know exactly what's going on and can interface with the Web2 front end side of things, but also to be able to store a lot of information about stateful interactions and payments and other things that are involved with building this out. But at the end of the day, this is the primary components of what runs in the system and what the entire backend looks like. So other than Postgres, which obviously is also open source, everything else in here is driven off of Hyperledger. And even honestly, our user sign-up side is driven off of Keycloak, so also open source, so it's OSS from the beginning. The admin app, which I didn't talk about in the beginning, is really the ability for a brand admin to go in and create an offer, to mint a badge for you, to allow you to set up a set of collection items for you to be able to redeem, which we'll see in the demo. But the idea there is that, an admin can go in, depending on their level of complexity and capability, can go in and do each of these pieces themselves, from minting an NFT without even really knowing that's what you're doing, right, to creating loyalty points, which is really creating an ERC20 token and putting that in somebody's account so that they have a token, or for an entry token to enter into a game or a sweepstakes, which has no monetary value, but again is just another ERC token type that's there. And this entire system, as I said before, is all built around the Hyperledger framework.
Hey, Eddie.
Yeah.
We got a question about what cloud environment you're referring to in the slide here.
So multiple clouds, to be honest. So kind of a lot of the core capability is using AWS currently. The Hyperledger side of it is in the midst of being moved over to OBP and using Oracle's cloud. So it's a combination of both currently. We also have an environment that will be built on Azure later in the fall for a customer who wants to go in that direction. So it's kind of cloud agnostic from that perspective. We have nodes running across multiple clouds and multiple AZs within the clouds so that everything's fully redundant. The preview thing, yeah. All right. There we go. So I talked about gamification. Like I said, we'll go through this a little bit in the demo, but really it's about how do you engage with a customer to get them to take a series of actions, to get them to, follow someone or save a track from someone. So in this example, again, right, you can basically save a track on Spotify. You can follow someone on Spotify. You can enter a sweepstakes to win some kind of a ticket or an experience or a collectible item. And then you can do a series of things. So if you go into the platform top listener, what does that mean? It means I need to have, listened to at least 3 tracks. So I have listened to these 3 in the past, or in this case, I haven't, right? So I need to get 3 more. So I can go out to this. It's going to link me out to the Spotify application in this case, and let me go listen to that track and get a response back that I've completed it. And then this will be marked as complete, right? So 1 of 3. And then 2 of 3, and then 3 of 3. And once I have all this, I can go redeem it and get a special badge, which is a top listener badge in this case. But this lets me set a series of challenges that people can do, or set some games of chance, right, from a sweepstakes perspective. And think about what people would do to, get Taylor Swift tickets these days. If you put a sweepstakes out for Taylor Swift tickets, Lord knows what you get. Because people are paying $25,000 to $50,000 a ticket now to get into some of those shows. So, but you can make it a gamified experience to do collections, to do saves, to get rewards for, following certain users or playing certain tracks, or going out and, looking at a specific series of media things that you have to do, or, sharing social media information, sharing your track you saved on social media. All those things are gamified ways that you can engage with a customer to let them basically collect a series of things that lets them then combine those into something more interesting, which could be free tickets to a show, could be, a special track, which is a very popular one, putting some vault content inside of an NFT and making it a special track you can't get any other way. Meaning there's, a track that was, the original recording, which you used to get to buy at a record store on some special thing, you now could get this way and have a recording that nobody else has unless they've gone through the same process. Or getting access to different alternative cover art is another popular one, or, some special ownership in a track, which we've done most recently with a couple of platforms. So there's a number of ways that you can engage with people to get some series of actions, all of which being stored on the ledger as an action, and all of which results in being awarded a badge, which is essentially an NFT, right? So you're getting an NFT, and then you're able to redeem series of NFTs for others. So you're doing a burn and swap kind of configuration to get different things. But each of these actions results in generating either an NFT or a token that you can use to, say, enter a sweepstakes or play a game of chance. All right, so we have some random spin and scratch style games as well that let you take a chance on doing something with one of those entry tokens. So there's a number of the things that popped up in the chat. Get a series of questions.
There was one question about functionality on IBM. So I'm assuming that's related to the cloud environment, and you said it was agnostic, but maybe you can talk a little bit about.
Sure, absolutely. So currently, like I said, we have AWS, and Oracle is rolling out as we speak. Matter of fact, my team is working on a lot of that today. So those are already supported. Like I said, in the fall, we have a customer who wants us into the Azure environment, so we'll be doing that as well. IBM has not been a requested platform, so we do have some patches that we've needed to have put into 2.4 something, 2.4.5, I think, 2.4 of Hyperledger in order to make some of this functionality work the way we need it to. So we could not run on Oracle's 2.2.4, which was their standard OBP. So we're running an early release of OBP's 2.5 support, which is coming out a few months from them as a production release, but we're running an early release of that to get functionality we needed. I believe IBM's is still on an older version of Fabric, but we could, assuming they update to something after the patches that we needed to have. And we've paid a couple of community members to build some patches and get them pushed in. And then we've had some cooperation with some other community people on what we've done and what they've done to get some of the capabilities in to be able to build this in the way we need it to be built. So that would be the only limitation.
Perfect.
So kind of at the core of all of it, and to me, I think the most interesting piece is getting the DID side of it set up. So being able to do the decentralized ID. So we essentially, when a user comes into the system, right? So we're going to basically create a account for them. We are going to, and this is a verification one, not a creation one here, but nonetheless, when a user logs in, they go into Keycloak, they can log in, whether it be with a email and password, or whether it be with one of the social media, social login options. They can basically pick one of those and set up the account, or we have the ability to use OAuth or SAML providers for our brands that want to connect into theirs as well and make them a brand login capability. And at that point, we use Keycloak to set up a user ID and account for them. Then we go out to the wallet app, which essentially then creates a wallet in whatever chains are registered with that user environment. So Fabric is always the case because we use that as not only our DLT for recording everything, but also Fabric's at the core of all of them. But we could also, as you saw on the earlier slide, connect out to Polygon, or we have WeMix support coming later in the fall. We could support ETH, although we haven't had a request yet. We support Tezos because of the Warner Music relationship. So we basically then go create a wallet for each one. We tie that back into your DID that we create on Indy, and then there becomes a series of VCs for the brands and what they're connected to. So you would have one DID, and you could choose to, assuming you use the same information, use that on multiple brands platforms going through our login platform. Or you could have a separate one for each one if you wanted to keep your information separate, right? You'd have to use a different email phone number combination, but you could certainly have your account for brand A being, say, Warner, and brand B being, say, Pepsi. You could use a totally separate login set, or you could use the same one and pull the information together in a single DID with separate VCs for each one of the brands. So it's set up to make it where the user is in control and they can decide what they link or don't link between brands. So that's kind of a unique thing here that in all the conversations I've had anyway, is something that no one else has really done a very good job of. It's either trying to tie it all to some centralized thing that they control, or it's tying it into a platform where the brand owns the data. And we do not want that to happen. Having the brand own the relationship, of course they do, but having the brand own the data for the user, I think we're all trying to move away from that in the new world. But we use the kind of traditional kind of bottom right picture of the holder issuer verifier process that is kind of common against the Indy Aries framework. And unfortunately, a non-creds wasn't quite available at the time we started building this out. So we didn't move to that extreme just yet, but I think we'll probably end up there in the near future. All right, so now let's make sure the demo gods smile on us today. Let's see if we can get. Hey, look at that. Green outline means everything's good. Yay, raw. All right. So this is an example of where we are. This is Warner's dev environment. So, not as pretty as it could be, but essentially we have a homepage that has a series of drops that sit on here, or offers, or whatever you decide to put here. All of this is programmable by the admin. So each one of these sections is something you control, you can edit in the admin editor, and it'll change the page that's live. So each of these things can be moved around. You can prioritize them up and down. It's all programmable from a white label perspective to be able to have a different view depending on what you want. Colors, these are Warner's colors, but could be anything. The basic earn gives you the capability to do things like I talked about from a gamification perspective, which is, follow someone, save a track, enter a sweepstakes. So I'm not logged in currently, so I'm not going to have the ability to do this. But if I am, so there's going to be some kind of a sweepstakes that I can enter. I can spend a token and enter that. So I would know what I have. I'm showing you the not logged in version first. If I go to redeem things, you can see what you've collected and how many of something you need. I need to go follow a track or save a track rather. FAQ is not important. So let me log in real quick. Yeah, that's me. All right, so now I'm logged in as me. So now when I go to see things, I can actually go do things like, go follow a track or not. This is what you get for demoing in dev. Sorry, our staging environment's being deployed today, so I'm demoing in a dev environment and hoping that things are going to work. There you go. That one worked. So I can go claim an item. I can go look at redemptions and see what I have. So if I want to go do this, I can go collect, which is a fault. Yeah, Spotify link's not working. Oh, it's because I'm not logged into Spotify. Yeah, anyway, so this would normally take me out, let me follow an artist or save a track, and then I'm going to collect an item. I can then go look at my rewards to see what I have. It'll give me my badges. It'll show me my challenges, and then let me edit my profile. And because I'm not logged in, it never fails. Yeah, that's not going to work. And of course, demo guides do not smile today. But this is the concept is the ability to earn things and take actions, to do stuff, to enter a sweepstakes, to go test whatever it is. And agree to the rules. Now I can go enter sweepstakes. I don't have enough tokens, so I have to go earn one. Right. So I've got all the series of things that I have to do to be able to figure out whether I have entry tokens or whether I have the ability to do something. Following artists and save artists gives me those entry tokens so that I can go down and enter these. The collections, the redemption collection ones, I'll show you a couple of these because these are, right, so I need a yellow and a blue to make it green in this test example, right? So I got to be able to go collect each of these in order to be able to redeem them in. So it's going to tell me if I go to burn it, if I go to use the yellow and the blue to make it green, it's going to burn, and I'm going to say okay. And then it's not going to have any, so it's not going to work. Sorry that I had to demo in dev today. But this is the concept of what it looks like, right? So you have the ability to modify each of these sections, move things around. Yeah, the Katy Perry and Taylor Swift stuff. Each one of these is a section that you control as an admin, and you can put things there. You can create drops. So for the people who understand what that is versus not. But that's the unfortunately quick version of the demo.
Let's see if anyone has any specific questions about the demo, and where are you seeing the biggest traction in what you're doing with Warner Music there? Is it that the fan base is really charged up about getting unique NFTs for an artist, or are they looking for alternate cover art? What is kind of what you're seeing as a trend there?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the interest is in, the ability to collect something interesting, right? I mean, unfortunately, the market we're in now, not a whole lot of people care about the NFT value. So the majority of people that are engaging from the perspective of they want to go collect something interesting, or they're interested in entering a sweepstakes to get a unique ticket to something, or a ticket to something they couldn't get otherwise, or you said the unique items, the kind of vault content. That's the majority of where the interest is.
Okay, perfect. Look like we have a question about if you could build out the NFTs on Hedera Hashgraph. Has that been a consideration, or how would that integration look like?
I'm sure you could. Not something that we've looked at from that perspective. I mean, it certainly could be. If there was user interest, we might look at going a different direction. But for now, I think kind of what we've built out has been very specific around this stack.
Okay. Let's see what other questions we have here. There's a question about tracking the value of the NFT over time in Warner Music, as the demo showed. Have you looked at there? So talk a little bit about that, Eddie.
Yeah, there's a couple things. So one is we'll be rolling out over the next couple of months some new functionality to allow for a secondary marketplace that will obviously drive a lot more understanding as to what the value is. In a lot of cases, people will probably trade more than anything else based on the kind of feedback we've gotten so far. But certainly it would set a value for things, especially things that people really want to collect for a reason, right? Part of the idea of collecting a set of 3 things or 5 things or whatever to redeem them for a badge or to redeem them for a product is in getting people to, engage more. But part of that is that just like the Monopoly game at McDonald's, right? Everybody wants the Park Place because it's the one nobody can get. If somebody gets the Park Place, it's worth $1 million, right? In this case, it's not going to be the $1 million, but it's going to be that one unique item that maybe only 10 people have, and someone's willing to pay you for that item to get, say, a ticket to a show that they want that you maybe don't care about, but you were lucky enough to get that in a random selection of an item. So when you're collecting those sets, so we think a lot of the value from the conversation so far and what we've seen is going to be around building those collections and figuring out how to work with others to trade things that they want for what you want. Right. One of the biggest problems with redeeming in a loyalty platform today is I can only redeem for the things you give me an option for. And maybe I don't need a companion ticket. Instead, I'd much rather have a first class upgrade, to think of the plain version of it. But I can't get a first class upgrade and you can't get a companion ticket. So why don't we trade those? Right. And the idea is to enable that kind of interaction, which again gamifies more things and lets people figure out how to get what they actually want from the loyalty system versus something that maybe they don't care about. And a lot of the offers will make that even more expansive.
Yeah. Looks like we got a great question here about how do you track the authenticity of any type of NFT that's issued through the platform and verify that it's, definitely related to that artist and definitely related to Warner Music?
Well, given that these are all created from a Warner perspective, I mean, the Warner admins create them or our admins create them with the Warner team. In this case, we know they're authentic. There's no way for them not to be, because the only way to mint onto the specific platform. In general, however, for like the shared platform environments, there's an entire takedown process. There's a AI capability to look for things that we know shouldn't be there. So there is a whole process around authenticity on that. In this particular, the OnePlatform case, it would be the admins of the brand that are creating them. So if they're using, a major brand like Warner is obviously not going to use somebody else's IP without permission. So
Sure.
in these cases, it's easier to do.
Okay, perfect. And then looks like Gary has a question about just getting a very simple explanation of what you described there. I don't know if there's any more distillation you can do, Eddie, or did you pretty much get it to the brass tacks?
Well, I think maybe a slightly simplified version is that, people want to engage with a brand in certain ways, and we really want to enable that brand to engage with you the way you want. People also want to be challenged in a gamified world, right? So we've gotten a lot of user feedback and different studies that we've done on that, and people really want to be interacted with in a gamified way. It's just kind of the way we think today. So being able to do things like collections and random drawings and sweepstakes and those things gives you a way to gamify the experience and get people to understand how they want to engage, how the brand wants to engage them, and how to bring those two together.
Perfect. We have another user, Eddie, that's asking about the Git repo for your open source content. So do you have any link that you could share?
We will, the Tezos Connect framework, which will be open sourcing sometime next month. That will be obviously done through the Hyperledger Foundation. So it'll be just another connector under the Hyperledger Firefly Tezos Connect side. So we won't have our own Git repos for that. The remainder of the components will be opening over time. We're writing a bunch of specifications for things and getting feedback currently to make sure that we do things in a way that's usable by a larger community. So there will be a series, and in September when we do the talk on our Indy Aries framework side, we will definitely have a couple of repos to share at that time. But things are progressing and we're getting things kind of buttoned up, and then we'll be opening up a lot of the code.
Perfect. We got another great question here from Bobby. She's on the call. Bobby, if you want to come off and just ask the question directly, that'd be great. Or I can read it off to Eddie here.
No worries. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Bobby, for joining always.
Thank you. And Eddie, great information. I'm interested in this because, again, I run Ledger Academy, which is like blockchain university in the metaverse. and I'm interested in badging systems and earning and gamifying education. So for someone like me who has like a brand already and just needs to get this process going, what steps would you suggest to get me started? Like, is there a repo I could copy? Like, what would be like, oh, go here first kind of idea?
Yeah, well, it's kind of complicated, honestly. There's a lot of pieces that you kind of have to pull together to make this work in a meaningful way. So, like I said, with us kind of opening up the ability for others, and we have some brands that are going to run some nodes on our DID infrastructure as well, other than not just us and multiple clouds, but also, letting others run nodes on the DID side, and then the ability to do the badging and such. I mean, it's all available in between Firefly and Fabric, but there's a lot of tricky things to setting it up properly and then getting all the permissioning tied together. So, we'll start publishing a lot more of that and opening that up. But with any kind of chain currently, it's still complicated to do, and the permission chain is kind of key to make this stuff work. So Hyperledger is obviously a great fit for that, but there's a bunch of pieces to move around in this. If you want to reach out to me separately, I'm happy to have a conversation with you about some ways you might be able to start something separately, or we can talk about how you could tie into our DID framework as we open it up to allow others to become part of it.
Excellent. Actually, I'm going to be on the call Wednesday.
Okay.
The Firefly call. So I'll ask questions more then. So
okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Bobby. That sounds like exciting stuff, and I look forward to that further discussion. Next thing is there's a user wanting to know about recovering their NFTs if they lose their identity credentials. So, that's always a challenge with blockchain and identity. So, Eddie, you maybe want to respond to that one?
Absolutely. So basically, we set the platform up based on the way that the brand wants to do it. Our recommended way is to do, a multi-sig shared custody thing so that we can always recover. When we set it up, well, we always will set it up in a multi-sig environment. We will set it up where, depending on what the brand wants, where the user controls, both keys, where, we make it all custodial and we control all the keys, and they make a signing request and then we do it. We can also have a shared ownership where the brand has, do 3 and the brand has 1 and the user has 1 and we have 1 in case we go away. The two of them could still maintain that asset and the asset control. But the same would be true if the brand went away for some reason. 2 of us could still do the 2 out of 3 configuration. But we always recommend at a minimum that we create 2 keys, let the user have 1, and we store 1 in a vault so that it can be recovered later so that you don't lose your asset. Because I agree, as someone who has lost a hardware wallet access in the past, it's not a lot of fun, and it is not enjoyable at all to know that you've lost that. So we kind of designed around not letting you lose it so that there's a recovery key capability at a minimum.
Perfect. And we had another question here from Pravin, and their question is it going to be a consortium network?
That is the eventual plan that we have, yes. So initially we want to get the DID side and all of our Indy Aries stuff set up to where we have others running identity nodes that can also onboard issuers and verifiers and run nodes of their own. But eventually, for all of it, we want it to be set up as a consortium at some point in the future. That's a harder thing to do right now with brands and the current state of the Web3 world, but I think that will change.
Okay. I got a question for you, Eddie, which is really around, we're talking about Warner Music here, and you had Taylor Swift up on your display there. And, one of the concerns that's, we've heard in the news is availability of tickets and getting tickets that are scooped up by the scalpers. And then, people that are really the fans can't get access to tickets. So is there anything that you've looked at as far as maybe partnering with somebody like Live Nation to address some of those issues using a, identity that, let's say, an individual fan would have an identity, and therefore if they've gone through and done their verification, they would have an allocation of X number of tickets, and then you'd want to make sure that each fan that signed up for that platform would get their requisite number of tickets.
We have certainly had a series of conversations. I can't speak in detail to those right now, but there's been a series of conversations with different ticketing agencies that, and even venues that will hopefully lead to a future where we can do that, or at least tie it to the label or the artist, so that there's an ability for you to be, you know, a super fan or whatever, and have that badge and let that token gate your access to an early sale or to a guaranteed sale, meaning you can get 1 ticket or 2 tickets for sure before it becomes available to a general market. So the whole token gating and gating based on experience is definitely something that we have talked to a number of folks about. Hopefully you'll see something out by the end of this year.
Great. Yeah, I think that'd be very helpful to both the fan base and as well as the artists, because it's always a challenge for them that, you know, the scalpers come in and now all of a sudden the prices go way up and the real fans get locked out of the market. So, okay, great. We got a question here from Jerry. Participating in running nodes, what is the roadmap ideas here, as in who are you asking to run a node?
Currently, they would be brands participating in the platform. That's the current state of what we're looking to open the network up into. We also have a couple of other companies who are doing things in the DID space on the consumer side, as well as another company that's doing some Web3 based DeFi stuff that is looking at writing some common specs with us so that we could share our DID infrastructure with them and they could run nodes and we could do that work. So a technology approach that's similar and complementary, we would certainly be open to anyone that wanted to do that. And then the brands, there's a couple of brands who have directed interest in doing their own thing. So.
Okay. And then I had another question for you, Eddie, around, we talked a lot about the music industry here and the great work that you're doing there. Are there other verticals that you're exploring for this platform? And I know, you know, loyalty is always a big thing for a lot of companies. And let's say something in the hospitality arena. Have you done anything with the hospitality industry?
Yeah, our next kind of series of clients that are coming out, and I can't give brand names, but the next series of clients that are coming out are in the textile space as well as one in the entertainment space. So those are going to be the ones that will come out this fall with their platforms. There's another tech company that's coming out as well on the platform over the next couple of months. So I mean, there's going to be a number of different verticals and people who have interest in a kind of next gen solution in the space. We're also working with some of the classic loyalty systems to see how we can engage and partner with them, and how we might be able to build a joint solution that lets you move from the legacy way of, you know, emailing and spamming people to an actual interaction that somebody wants, where they've opted into it and, you know, they want to do something with you because you've gamified it or because you've offered them something.
Perfect. Looks like we have another question here from Varun. We already have a working solution with IPs for this kind of application in Concentrix. Here's a link. So are you familiar with what Concentrix is offering?
I am not.
Okay. I guess the other question I'll ask for you is, you know, you talked about some of those other ones. How about the sports arena? It seems like, you know, there's a lot of parallels between music artists and sports figures. And what's kind of your thought around, you know, the sports industry as well?
Sports is challenging for a couple of reasons. One, because who owns what is a big continued fighting point in the sports arena. So, you know, venues own access to certain things and teams own access to certain things. And then the leagues, you know, be it, you know, MLB or NBA or NFL own certain things. And then the athletes themselves own a much smaller set of things. So it's a challenge as to who to work with. We've had a number of conversations and some continue on. But one of the bigger problems there is just who do you talk to get certain things? And, you'd have to engage both a team and a league and sometimes a venue and also an athlete to get a package of things you would want to offer. And that's been consistently made very difficult across all of the major sports leagues. So the reason I think you don't see more of this is because of that. I mean, I partnered with a former NFL star in one of my previous companies doing some interesting stuff in the space, and the things of his own that he didn't own were super interesting. He had pictures of himself because it was in a certain arena or because he was wearing the team's jersey he didn't actually own the rights to. So It creates a whole lot of challenges, right? So that arena, until we start fixing some of that stuff and clarify who actually owns what, is much harder to deal with.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant answer, Eddie, and that's exactly what I was trying to get to the bottom of is, how does the music industry compare to the sports? And it sounds like there's a lot of more pitfalls in the sports arena to deal with than there are in necessarily the music industry. Okay, great. Looks like we have another good flow of questions coming through. And then here's A. Abram Jr. I have a novice question. How would a consortium mentioned previously work? Isn't that contrary to the point of Web3?
Well, the consortium would be more towards running a series of nodes that are decentralized, or towards running, a single, say, Hyperledger Fabric with multiple orgs and MSPs set up in it, right? So what you're doing is kind of letting the user control, as I mentioned kind of in the presentation, whether they share data between brands or they use a different email and password or phone number, or whether they use a different social media account to log in so that they're not linked. That's up to the user whether they pull that together. So you can stay completely separate and create them all with different login capabilities, or you could put them together as various ways of, letting you link your relationship with one brand to another. And the same thing on the consortium side. When you're running nodes, it doesn't mean that those companies are in charge of the DIDs all of a sudden. It just means they're one of many companies that would be running a node on a decentralized infrastructure, and they would have their own capability to onboard verifiers and issuers just like you would. And it just kind of extends and lets you match a unique DID between those platforms. So it still stays decentralized and it still keeps everything separate, but the consortium is more to manage and run the infrastructure behind it and the standards that we comply with to make sure we protect users and brands' unique ability to interface with their customers without doing what most of the tech companies do today and steal your data.
Okay, looks like Gary's got a good question here. And, we were talking about the different verticals, and it sounds like he wants a little bit of a deeper dive into the entertainment vertical. And so he's asking about, are you attempting to work end to end as far as suppliers, venues, entertainers, production companies, advertisers within the ecosystem? So, you have Warner Music or Warner Media. How does that all play into those other vertical components?
Well, of course, we'd like to play across the whole stack, right? And we are working towards that in getting relationships with other brands and kind of moving in that direction. But the reality is it's all so disparate currently that it's not easy to just stitch all of that together, right? I mean, the brand, in this case, Warner, has access to a certain number of tickets at a certain concert in a certain venue, but that has nothing to do with the venue. Or they have an allocation of tickets that are given to them as the label, right? There's also many other ways in which one part of the supply chain has access to something that others don't, right? The production side, the advertising and marketing side, those are all separate but equal. I mean, kind of in the way our government's supposed to work, right? They're separate but equal branches and each do their own thing, and they don't really work very well together. So stitching those together is a very interesting thing, and we're really trying to do it, but there's not a lot of easy, when you say entertainment supply chain in this case, there really isn't one of those. There's a whole bunch of different pockets that deliver different capability in the entertainment industry.
Yep, perfect answer. Great job. Here's another question we have from Maki. And it looks like Maki's asking, I saw verifiable credentials on the architecture. How exactly is that used in your case? So they're asking about
Sure.
the verifiable. Yep.
Yeah, so the user creates, when they log into the platform, with a unique new way of logging in. Like I said, whether it's an email, phone number, password, or it's a social, it creates a DID on the Indy side. The portal that they logged into, say in this case, the Warner portal, is what creates the verifiable credential for Warner. So you have a Warner loyalty account. It's then a verifiable credential that's issued by the Warner platform that says, you know, John, you have an account on Warner, and here's the information for your account. So Warner is issued a VC for that. When you go to log back into Warner again, it's just going to verify your credential to make sure that you have a loyalty account on Warner. And if, say, you've earned 1,000 new points, that we've allocated those to you in the platform, right? So all that stuff is tracked in your VC that comes from Warner saying you're a Warner loyalty member with this ID. So that's, and it would be the same with any other brand that onboards, right? They become an issuer and they issue you a credential. So you use your same account to log into Warner that you do, you know, I'm a United Airlines fan, I'll use them. So to log into your United account and you use the same ID, I have a VC from United so that I can access United's portal to get their rewards. It'd be great if they did that, by the way. They won't use anything modern, but if they did, it'd be cool to have them have a Web3 platform so I could trade some stuff I really would like to have and a bunch of stuff I don't want, and they'll let expire every year.
Okay, perfect. Let's see if we have any other questions from the community. If you want to go ahead and post those in the chat, feel free to do so, and we'll make sure that Eddie runs through those. I guess maybe what I'll ask you, Eddie, is just about more the Hyperledger community and how the maintainers and developers have really collaborated with your company to make sure that your platform's a success. And I think, you know, we're always interested in how the Hyperledger community is thriving, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So obviously I engage in pretty regular calls, as do a lot of the people on my team, with the various different projects on the Fabric side. Like I said, we collaborated by finding someone who had committed some code that we needed a patch done to and reaching out to them. And, you know, they're an independent, so we just paid them for their hours and they pushed a patch in for us that we wanted. We've also, on Discord and through community calls, we've had conversations about patches we needed and some of the things we're working on. And some people have just said, hey, I was working on that anyway, or, hey, we're doing it this way, but if that works for you, great. And if not, maybe we could work together to get this next stuff done. As I mentioned, we're going to open source the Tezos connector for Firefly, and we've been on regular calls and eco leads on the Firefly project and talking and getting feedback on the right way to do it, so that we release it in a way that could be adopted immediately by the Firefly side of things. So there's been a lots of different ways. You'll also, for my team, you'll see people that are regularly on Discord, not only asking questions, but answering them. Mona, for my team on the Indy Aries side, she's been very active in that community. So, I mean, it's really about engaging on Discord, getting on the community calls, figuring out what you need and reaching out to the right person. I've never had anyone ignore me or not respond. You know, if I can find who committed the code that I'm really interested in on, you know, say Indy, and I find out it's, you know, this guy from Accenture, I've had no issue pinging him and saying, hey, can we have a quick conversation about this? Or if I, you know, could give you this snippet of code, would you be willing to, you know, merge it in with the next thing, because it shows you're working on an issue that's related. It's been very open.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear, Eddie, and that's my experience as well. Is people want to keep the community moving forward, and there's a very vibrant community for help. And usually when somebody has a strong need, they can reach out right away and get some resolve quickly. So that's good. Okay, looks like we got Jerry Rogers coming in with a question here. What would it mean to become a participating brand? And I guess they're asking about, is it big money, tech participation, etc.? So maybe you can that. Yep.
Well, yeah, the answer to that question is it can be a combination of money and participation. For some brands, they just want to pay for you to do it all. So we have a full managed service offering and we do everything for them, in which case it costs a lot more money. For others, it's as simple as, paying a monthly wallet fee per user and we run the infrastructure. For others, there's an opportunity for one of the companies I was talking about that looking at running nodes, like there's an ability for them to run nodes and pay a much smaller amount to be part of the platform and have the capability to run it. So, obviously it costs us money to run it in the cloud environments, and we will recoup costs at a minimum, but there is a way to do it in a couple of different scenarios depending on what you're looking for, right? From you do all your own admin and all we do is provide a platform for you, to we literally do everything for you, including creative and art and IP verification and everything. So there's definitely a wide range of how that works.
Perfect. The other thing I'm going to just say is, you talked a lot about Firefly here and you talked a lot about Fabric. If there's people on this particular session that want to, reach out to you or reach out to the community and help push this forward, how would you recommend people get a hold of you? Can you maybe post your Discord username or other ways to reach out to you if they want to help and participate along the lines of what you've talked about earlier?
Yeah, I'm not real hard to find. So I'm like Eddie Satterly on everything. And I'm Eddie at oneof.com if you just want to email me. But on search for Eddie Satterly, you'll find me on every platform you want. And if you Google me, you'll find my phone number. Please don't call unless it's important, but you can text.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. No, the main thing is, Eddie, sounds like you're working on some wonderful work here and really pushing both the music industry forward as well as the Hyperledger community. And I want to make sure people have the opportunity to work with you.
Sounds great.
Okay, let's look here. And then Alfonso, thanks for joining, Alfonso. Really great to have you on this call. And he's wondering about a presentation possibly in Spanish. Do you have anyone on the team that might be able to do that type of presentation, Ederly?
I do. Eddie? Yep. Yeah, we have one of our tech resources that's in South America that speaks Spanish. So yes, we certainly could do.
Okay, that's wonderful. And what I would suggest, Eddie, is for you and Alfonso to connect offline. And Alfonso runs the Hyperledger community in Latin America there. And so he would be a great collaborator to get that out as far as Spanish language content.
Sounds great.
Okay. Looks like someone's just looking for conversation on Discord. We kind of already talked about that. Alfonso, great. Glad you're going to reach out to Eddie about the Spanish language content, which is perfect. And so I guess at this point, Eddie, we're coming up on the top of the hour. If anyone has any final questions or you want to make any final remarks, please do so. And then, Eddie, I think we'll just bring this session to a close.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Eddie. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, John.